Welcome back. I have a brand new name, logo, intro, and episode for you today. So gather around, your screens. What if I told you that the One Ring in Lord of the Rings may have been inspired by an ancient Greek myth? I know, but just hear me out. J.R.R. Tolkien wrote an epic story spanning across numerous books. He created a whole world with its own history and language. The better known and prevailing storyline that has even been adapted in an amazing film trilogy involves the One Ring, a ring of power forged in the fires of Mount Doom by Sauron with the intention to rule all others. When Sauron was defeated, various mortals came by his ring. What they discovered was that by wearing the ring, they became effectively invisible, and its power inevitably corrupted them. Now, let's turn to Plato's Republic, where in a discussion regarding morality, Hlafgon recounted a myth about King Geges' ring. According to the myth, an unnamed ancestor of King Geges was a shepherd in the service of the ruler of Lydia. After an earthquake, a chasm was revealed in the mountainside where he was feeding his flock. Entering the chasm, he discovered that it was in fact a tomb with a bronze horse containing a corpse larger than that of any man, who wore a golden ring, which he then pocketed. He discovered that by adjusting the ring, he gained the power of invisibility. Then he used this new power of invisibility to seduce the queen, and with her help, murder the king and become king of Lydia himself. Now, the reason Hlafgon told this myth to Socrates in Plato's Republic was to discuss with the famed philosopher whether any man could be so virtuous that he may resist the temptation of killing, robbing, or generally doing injustice to whomever he pleased if he could do so remaining undetected. Socrates ultimately argued that justice does not derive from the social construct. The man who abused the power of the Ring of Geges had in fact enslaved himself to his appetites, while the man who would choose not to use it would remain in control of himself and will therefore be happy. The Ring of Geges was a mythical allegory of how a ring granting invisibility could lead to corruption. In our parallels with Tolkien's One Ring, we can see Socrates' argument in action. Sauron is enslaved to the One Ring. His life depends on it. Everyone else is either driven mad by their desire to possess it and are corrupted by it, or struggle internally and refuse their inner urge to possess it, thereby remaining in control and happy. Frodo resists its power and suffers its consequences most. He carries it because his intentions are pure. He seeks no power, wealth, or can be corrupted. Ultimately, the ring takes a hold of him, but he's able, with Sam's help, another incorruptible hobbit who, let's face it, was really the reason why Frodo made it all that way, to destroy it. Now, no one knows what inspired Tolkien's One Ring. He never mentioned his inspiration for it as far as I'm aware. A lot of his critics at the time drew parallels with Richard Wagner's opera series, The Ring of Nibelung, which featured a magical but cursed golden ring and a broken sword reforged. Tolkien loathed both Wagner and that comparison, telling his publisher both rings were round, and there the resemblance ceases. But most believed that, like Wagner, Tolkien was simply inspired by Norse mythology, and more specifically, the Volsunga saga, in which Andvari had a magic ring that helped him find gold. The mischievous god Loki steals Andvari's treasure and the ring. In revenge, Andvari curses the ring to bring misfortune and destruction to whoever possessed it. Another possible source might be the Mabinogion, a medieval Welsh epic, which includes 3 late Arthurian stories. The first story, Owen or the Lady of the Fountain, tells us how Owen, a knight in King Arthur's court, is imprisoned in a castle where a maiden gives him an invisible ring. However, it is quite possible that the medieval stories of rings that confer invisibility owe something to Plato. Not only were many Greek and Roman classics preserved throughout the Middle Ages, but they also provided inspiration and education for many generations of medieval poets, philosophers, and clerics. And even though the influences of Anglo-Saxon and Norse mythology can be seen more clearly in his works, it is not unreasonable to assume that Tolkien was also influenced by Greek mythology. The disappearance of the island of Numenor into the sea mirrors that from the myth of Atlantis as told again by Plato. So where do we stand on the Ring of Geges' influence? In truth, and as I am inevitably biased to my theory and connection of two of my favorite worlds, Greek myths and Tolkien's lore, I would suggest that the Ring of Geges has more in common with Tolkien's One Ring than any of the other possible sources of inspiration. But I would be interested to see what you think of this theory in the comments. Before you go, I have another strange parallel that I recently discovered between Tolkien and, well, me. If you remember, in our first episode, we discussed the island I'm from, Andros, and its myth. Well, it turns out that there is actually an Andros in Middle-earth. It's called Caer Andros, and it is an island shaped like a ship. The name apparently means ship of the long foam. Very strange, and makes me wonder whether there's any connection to the real Andros. If you know, please let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this episode and all the new things. See you next time.